The Watership Down podcast is intended for listeners who are familiar with the plot. There will be spoilers. This episode is scripted, narrated, recorded and edited by Newell Fisher. Hello, and welcome to the Watership Down podcast episode 185, in which we will be looking at the third 10-minute segment of the third episode of the 2018 Netflix version of Watership Down. I had posted a warning on social media that this episode might be delayed. We have several issues going on right now, not least of which is the fact that I'm on crutches due to what is known as water on the knee, a gentle sounding phrase for something very painful. I've actually had this since mid-August, but it is coming to a head now. The only disadvantage of free healthcare at the point of use, particularly underfunded free healthcare, is that you have to wait far too long for treatment. If I had the money to pay for fast treatment, I would, but then again, as I don't have that kind of money, living in a nation with free healthcare is an absolute blessing. And the only healthcare insurance we have to worry about is for our cats, one of whom is extremely unwell. At least with me, we don't have to keep an eye on whether or not we are reaching the limit of our insurance. Meanwhile, as the human who Fiver meets in the other world says, I'm a bit stuck in a bloody hole. Anyway, enough of our human and feline woes. Let's see how Bigwig is getting on in Ephrata. Netflix miniseries Episode 3 Part 3 Groping. Part 3 of Episode 3, The Escape, runs from 20 minutes 25 to 29 minutes 05, and the reverse timings are 29 minutes 40 to 21 minutes. The equivalent chapters from the book are chapters 34, General Woundwort, 35, Groping, and the 3 Thunder chapters, 36 to 38. Back at Ephrata, Sergeant Sainfoin rushes up to the newly arrived Slaley, or Bigwig, to question him. Bigwig comments that he doesn't look much like a chief rabbit, which draws the response that the chief rabbit isn't easily met. Sainfoin demands to know who Bigwig is and why he has arrived. He also demands to be addressed as Sir. Bigwig says his name is Slaley, and that his old warren was destroyed by men, so he has come to join Ephrata. Sainfoin is suspicious of Bigwig's size and says he looks like a troublemaker. He asks if he was a member of the Owsler in his own warren and if he can fight. And this is where this story takes a bizarre turn, as Bigwig says he is no fighter and was a storyteller. First of all, he blatantly looks like a fighter. Secondly, in the book, he gets into an excellent position to roam around Ephrata straight away by immediately saying he was in the Owsler. With the shortage of good Owsler officers, he is immediately made an officer. And isn't that the sensible line to take rather than this bizarre story, pardon the pun, about being a storyteller? In any case, Sainfoin immediately puts Bigwig to the test by cuffing him across the face, hard. Bigwig, to his credit, resists his nature and does not immediately attack him back. He just stares evenly back at Sainfoin. After a pause, Sainfoin is convinced that this is no fighter. A big mistake. Events are telescoped now as an Owsler officer reports the attack on Captain Campion's wide patrol by a fox, adding that 3 sergeants have been killed. So it seems there are 3 ranks in this Owsler: Guard, Sergeant and Captain. Ever since the 1984 Australian Broadcasting Corporation radio play of Watership Down, the Ephrata Owsler has been elaborated in this way. But in the original story, the only difference from a normal Owsler was having multiple captains rather than just one who reports to the Chief Rabbit. Sainfoin reflects that they have now lost 5 Owsler in less than a week. The officer also reports that the fox was led on to them by another rabbit. Campion wants new guards urgently. Sainfoin wisely tells Bigwig his old chief was a fool not to train him up. He adds that he is no fool and to remember that. So, it seems Bigwig is in the Owsler anyway, despite the whole storyteller lie. Bigwig is left on his own, apparently now completely trusted. Yes, sir, he says, to himself. Meanwhile, underground, Clover struggles through a hole in the floor to arrive in Woundwort's quarters. He emerges and looms over her for a few moments, then comments on her having been marked and how important that is. Clover cowers fearfully. He then mentions a warren nearby that's been causing Ephrafa trouble. He adds that they thought at first she was from that warren, but it turns out she is an escaped hutch rabbit. Woundwort tells Clover that not many in Ephrafa realise that he lived in a hutch briefly, but he too managed to get out, from hutch rabbit to chief rabbit. Woundwort gets to the point. He is king of the warren, but kings need queens. An empire is built over generations. He places his paw on hers and she whimpers in fright. Clover is told she can go now, but that he does not like to be disappointed. Back above ground, Sainfoin is showing Bigwig around. He tells him where the marks are based and says he will be able to move between them. Bigwig comments that he hasn't seen any does yet, to which Sainfoin replies that they are kept in another part of the warren. That word, kept, shocks Bigwig. Before he can question it further, Captain Campion spots him and calls out his name, Slaley. As Campion approaches, Bigwig is terrified he will be recognised from the incident with the fox, but Campion just wants to comment on how suitable for the Owsler Bigwig looks. Campion tells Sainfoin not to look too happy. If Bigwig messes up, it will be him who is blamed. At that moment, Blackavar is led past by guards. Sainfoin comments that he has nearly been tawed around all the marks, so he will be retired soon. Ominously, Campion asks Bigwig what direction his old warren lay in. Bigwig says it lay to the south, but gets flustered when Campion points out where the sun would have lain during his journey. He admits that his warren lay to the north, which is true of both Watership Down and Sandalford Warren. Campion stares at him for a few moments. His eyes narrow. Then he leaves. After taking a moment to recover, Bigwig asks Sainfoin where the does are kept. As they arrive at the doe's enclosure, Sainfoin lets Bigwig know he can have any doe sent to his burrow. Bigwig spots Clover, but Sainfoin immediately says she is the exception. Bigwig says he will sylphy for a few moments and stops near Clover. Once she recognises him, Bigwig says that he is there to break them out, but it has to be tonight and to tell the others. Clover says they won't have anything to do with her. She points out Heisensley and says that's who Bigwig has to persuade. He says to leave it with him. Returning to Sainfoin, he is reminded that Clover is out of bounds. Sainfoin asks if any others have caught his eye. As it happens, yes, one has. It is later on. Bigwig sits in his burrow as Heisensley is roughly delivered to him. He wastes no time in telling her who he is and what the plan is. However, Heisensley is immediately suspicious. To persuade her, he tells of Holly and what he thinks of Heisensley, especially his gratitude for her saving him during his escape from Ephrafa. Twice they are interrupted by passing guards, but Bigwig goes on to explain that Clover is with them and how he will find Blackavar so he can escape as well. Heisensley seems convinced, but as she leaves, she asks Bigwig to promise her it will work. As the tense music builds, Bigwig makes his way secretly to Blackavar's burrow. Meanwhile, the does are digging an escape tunnel to the surface from where they are kept, which makes some active participants in their escape beyond just running. One of them refers to the other as sister as she takes over digging. And now Bigwig is outside looking for Kihar. The does suddenly break through to the surface. They have been digging all afternoon, but there is still no Kihar. Bigwig decides not to wait. They will just have to run for it. They move off, and suddenly a group of Owsler block their path. Campion asks him what is going on. Quick-thinking Bigwig says there was a collapse in one of the tunnels due to the dry weather, so he moves the does outside. Sergeant Sainfoin asks on whose authority. On his own, is Bigwig's response. Campion tells him he's been tricked and orders the does taken down to the deep burrows. Heisensley desperately makes a run for it and is pinned down by Sainfoin. Campion tells Slaley he will be watching him. He tells him Frith help him when Captain Orkis hears of this. The does are roughly led away, leaving Bigwig alone with his thoughts. The escape from Ephrafa has failed. And once again, we are in uncharted territory in this version of Watership Down. Comparison with the book. The Slaley of this version of the story does not even get to meet General Woundwort, who is even more remote than in the book. Instead, he is trained up very briefly by the ultimately ineffectual Sergeant Sutphin, with Captain Campion in a supervisory role. In the book, he is supervised directly by Captain Chervil in the Near Hind Mark. And why on earth does Bigwig try to pass himself off as a storyteller here? Surely being honest about his skills, as he is in the book, would have been a far safer way to obtain the privileges of Owlsler membership. Clover's presence in Ephrafa, as well as Woundwort declaring an intention to breed with her in order to build his empire, are bizarre add-on elements here that make this Woundwort a very different character, and possibly one grounded less in harsh reality than the Woundwort of the book. Clover's presence does allow Bigwig to gain some information that he would not yet be able to obtain from the more aggressive Heisensley, but I'm not entirely convinced by the way Bigwig ultimately brings Heisensley on side here. She isn't psychic in this version, and couldn't a spy have obtained all the information he gives her? Holly's gratitude for her previous help could then just be surmised. The escape seems over-hasty, though the Doe's more active participation in it is good, but the unreliable nature of Kihar here is depressing. By this stage in the book, he is a loyal ally, albeit one who intends to leave for the Peak-Varta after the escape from Ephrafa. This Kihar cannot be relied on at all, and his absence is probably a major reason why the first escape attempt fails. So now the Does are in the deep burrows, another innovation not in the book. How on earth will they get out now? Next time, as things grow even worse in Ephrafa, the rabbits from Watership Down take a trip into town after Fiver has a vision.